Hey everyone, Margarita here. I'm going to talk in this video today about the Brownstown, Michigan false police reports my mother's been making on me for a total of 25 years now. Each situation piggybacks off the last, and there's all these other agencies and police departments and court systems and all these other large agencies involved as well along the way, which has all snowballed into one giant situation where we are today in 2025. So there's periods of time where there's nothing going on with this city of Brownstown because I've owned numerous homes and left the entire area for long periods of time. So there wouldn't be any reports for long periods of time. And it's spread so far apart that nobody could ever comprehend when I'm trying to report some of this stuff, because I don't know exactly who's involved. I would say that my mother is in direct contact with someone near the top of the hierarchy within the Brownstown Police Department, if not numerous people toward the top. And then it may additionally involve most of those officers as well, just because that is where their house is and the longevity of how long this has been going on for. So there's numerous problems here. I've tried to make numerous reports over the course of time. As I was FOIA requesting documents last year, I then came to the conclusion that Brownstown had destroyed numerous sets of evidence along the way, and had omitted my reports altogether numerous times. And that's on my mother's behalf and due to her delusional phone calls and whichever officers are operating on her behalf, which it is numerous. It's not just one. So all of these people are involved. These are RICO crimes. There has been an exchange of money. And her main bottom line goal is to make sure I am either locked up by police long-term, in a mental hospital locked up long-term, and or deemed mentally incompetent on paper properly in some way, shape, or form, or that I'm killed. And all of those, mostly the being locked up in jail and due to all the false reports and the people involved in all of that, that's why that's all occurred or nearly occurred numerous times. And then the amount of times that I've nearly lost my life due to her direct actions is, I spent 3 years near death, so did my younger son, and it was due to her direct actions as a Beaumont Hospital employee. I did die twice and came back and was left with no help from Beaumont, directly involved. And one of the times kicked right out of the hospital onto the street after coming to, being brought in by ambulance, and then just booted from the hospital because they relied on the delusions and the false information in my medical file. So all of this ties together. Everything along the way. This has been going on since I was 3 or 4 years old. This is not just abuse. These are crimes. She does have Munchausen by proxy, which is an extreme form of abuse, because not only is she poisoning food, but she's portraying herself to be this victim, and I have this mental disorder, I'm this drug addict, and she raised my children and all these things to get all this attention. And she's done the same with my dad since his injury as well, and used all these police and court systems to get me banned from my dad as well. So all of this is tied together. With Brownstown, there was several incidences, that I found when I tried digging for these FOIA requested documents, that there's nothing on some of them. And the proof is actually in the pudding, because some of the stuff that I do have, the evidence is within the other evidence that was left behind or manipulated and cut short. So there is proof along the way. Not only that, I do have witnesses to some of this. My mother did get caught in the act red-handed attempting to murder me Labor Day weekend of 2021. Still never investigated by Brownstown, made numerous reports on it. I found only one of them written in any of these documents, and still nobody ever investigated it. She just tells them I have a mental disorder. I've always had one. I do believe she may have documentation on paper stating I have a mental disorder or I am considered mentally unstable. And it would be falsified. I'm not sure exactly how she went about getting this documentation. I do believe it does exist. I'm not sure who would have, there's probably several people involved and agencies involved in writing this documentation. I do believe it's been produced to numerous people or agencies along the way. Doesn't matter, it's all false. So all of these people are in on the crimes. And I have now counted out, I have lists I've been making lists all along. I've been putting this together for about 6 years now since my injury became extreme, and then I was left near death with no help in an extreme medical emergency, an extreme state of suffocation and brain swelling, 50, 60 severe symptoms at once, ongoing all day, every day, no relief from them whatsoever for years on end until I had the first day of relief. Even then, I lived with continuous waxing and waning symptoms all day from that initial injury. Now, that's what triggered me to figure out that there is a very serious problem. Why can't I get treatment in an extreme medical emergency? This doesn't make any sense. But she was a Beaumont Hospital employee at the forefront of making sure that that did not happen. And that's where the beginning of the false information began being put in mine and my younger son's medical record. Prior to that, all those 20 years prior that I'd been an adult, there was no medical history whatsoever. I was not a part of the medical system. So that should be the biggest red flag right there, that there was no professionals of any type involved except for my chiropractor all of those decades prior to my injury. So that's what caused me to begin digging a little deeper, and then it took me a while to begin treatment and find the place I did begin treatment at. That is the only reason we are still alive, and I know that the Oxford Center is responsible for the 5-year-old boy and the hyperbaric explosion. However, they are the only reason we were alive, that we got to live, and we are where we are today. Now there are its own separate set of crimes going on over there as well, which I am working with Troy Police on those currently. But the only reason we became patients there is due to my mother's crimes and the crimes of Beaumont Hospital. So upon beginning treatment a little over a year after the injury became extreme, once I started treatment and my brain was being repaired slowly over the course of treatment, because the hyperbaric oxygen treatments eventually repair the brain tissue very slowly over time, on top of removing the carbon monoxide at a cellular level, which is what was required for us, because our situation was the most extreme case where the people got to live and have, I mean, we have minimal quality of life, but have a life and are alive and able to like cook dinner and do minimal stuff almost every day at this point, all these years in. And it's taken about $400 and some thousand in treatment total to get us there. And that's after the billing discount. So as I started treating, as my brain tissue was repairing, more memories began coming back to me over the course of time. My mother's actions during the extreme part of the injury, because it stayed extreme for 3 years, and what she was doing to the people around me, and the Munchausen by proxy and the narcissistic abuse by proxy, because we have no direct contact. There's never been a relationship. So she used my dad, who we still kept a relationship with because they're still married. So she pumps him out full of delusions, which she'd been doing for decades behind the scenes with nobody else seeing this. And then my dad would have access to my 2 older kids and bring them to his house, and she would do that to them. And then they would come back to my house. Here I am fighting for my life, treating an inpatient injury as an outpatient situation, fighting for my life, trying to get to and from treatment, which was extremely hard to do in itself. And all these people around me screaming delusions in my face that were coming from her. And then using these large agencies to harass me at the same time this was going on, showing up at my house, harassing me. She was at the root of all of it. At the same time, she's sending other people over to bring poison batches of food into my home. I'm very hypervigilant to that. I've known she's done that since I was a kid, so most of that was not ingested. It only happened a few times, and so basically she's at the root of all that, and her extreme behavior during all of this is what caused me to figure the entire picture out. Now, I've always known along the way there was a problem with her from the time I was a small child. That's why I left at age 18. And then along the way, I had all these additional problems. Once I cut ties with her at 18 and I cut ties with her entire family, I had no clue she was continuing on with a false narrative with all of these hundreds of friends and family members and police departments and such, and all these agencies. I had no clue that that's what she was doing, flapping her jaw in the background, always on the phone or in person, telling these people all this stuff that was never real. No one ever realized I cut ties with her. And because we maintained a separate relationship with my dad, and he had access to my kids, who would then bring them back to his house since they are married, she was able to present them in places to back up the delusion she was telling everybody all along the way, that I was some piece of shit off wherever, and they had custody of and raised my kids, and I just took off. None of that was ever real. Everything she's ever been saying about me has been false all along the way. But it took my injury, figuring all that out backwards, because her odd behavior and all the strange occurrences that I was experiencing at the extreme part of my injury traced back to everything I had experienced all along the way. All these additional problems I had in life, and had no clue why I was experiencing all these strange additional, it just seemed very odd that I had all these crimes put on me, all these charges, all this all these problems, all these agencies having a problem with me, people having a problem with me, it's because she was running her mouth and placing delusional phone calls in the background. Now, many of these phone calls are undocumented. There's no way to prove it, but you can tell. But if you bring in any of these people who are taking these phone calls, you can tell by what their response is. If you ask about me, you can tell everything out of their mouth is delusions. So it's not like it's not provable. All of these people were told delusions about me. And that's when I started figuring out this had been going on all along. The thing is, I was very healthy before my injury, so I would just work harder and harder and have numerous streams of income my whole life to make sure everything was always flowing properly. And eventually became self-employed in 2007 and 100% self-employed in 2012. So I was able to accommodate the chaos and the crimes into my life more easily, being that I had full control over my schedule and how I make my money. So, but even along the way, she's disrupted many streams of income along the way. She has disrupted that as well. And it's using other people and these delusional phone calls and the phone call placing, because this is not normal. This is not neurotypical behavior. And it's hard for the average person who's viewing my videos or not understanding what I'm saying or why somebody would do something like this, because she's not neurotypical. And there's a greater agenda involved in all this. Or people think I'm looking for attention and that's why I'm posting this stuff. No, I'm posting it because justice needs to be served. This has been ongoing my entire life. I'm 41 years old. This has been going on the majority of my life. So these are crimes. These are RICO crimes. There are many people involved. I believe I counted 26 direct individuals, 26 or 27 direct individuals, and at least 10 to 12 large agencies, maybe more, and other individuals within those agencies as well. So there's probably about a good 100 people overall from the course of the time I was a teenager to current that are involved in all of this. And I have names. I have names of the companies. I have names of the people. There's been exchange of payment in some of these, or promises for payment in the future. And I will get more to that in future videos, but I just kind of had to give a little basis on how it even got to this point, because Brownstown Police Department is the main police department she had used and the main officers she'd used to continue on the backbone of this story, to keep it going all of these decades and play it out where it is today. Now, I will do a video on growing up Munchausen style, because that's not, people aren't understanding. I'm not seeking attention. The truth needs to come out. These people all need to be charged. My mother needs to be apprehended immediately and charged, and so do many of these direct individuals as well, on top of the distant flying monkeys and family members involved in that as well, because this false narrative has prevailed. At this point, it's over 1,000 people in all, between her family members, friends, co-workers, neighbors, people in my town, my city, their city, all the direct people involved, all the agency. It's over 1,000 people. Their arrest needs to be made immediately. I'm not going to stop until justice is served. This is going to make national news when it all blows, because eventually it will. I'm just going to keep releasing the videos until somebody picks up on it. And at this point, I do believe there is, on top of these agencies that are legit organizations, I do believe there is like a group of people who are involved in not a legit organization. It's an organization amongst themselves who have all participated in this against me long term. So, that's its own separate set of RICO crimes as well. Now, what I want to talk about here is, let's see. Okay, so I mentioned in one of the last videos about the Romulus, Michigan Police Department getting involved, because they've only been involved for 2 years. That's where my dad's care facility is, in Romulus, Michigan. So there is numerous false police reports. I did a video on those and how they were not investigated properly. The officer's idea of investigating is going straight to the deranged lunatic that I'm reporting is committing the crimes and who is the problem, and verifying with her that I have a mental disorder. So then they write that in the report. So there's many, many false police reports, on top of the fact that I have right here in Brownstown that my mother has stated that I'm mentally unstable and has, actually she got my dad to do it. So I don't know how many people she's done this with, but stating I'm mentally unstable, have a gun, and have threatened either one of them or both of them with my gun. So those are delusions. Clearly, she needs to be apprehended immediately. Obviously, I don't know if you can tell by now how many videos of mine you've watched, but if you watch over time, I'm extremely intelligent. I'm not dumb enough to do that for no good reason. To some, why would I? That doesn't even add up. So if you watch my videos, you'd see by my intelligence and what I've built and who I am as a person that would never be happening in the first place. But all these people believe all the delusions. They believe I'm some drug addict, mental disordered, hot mess living in a box somewhere, dumped my kids off decades ago. And then the fact that I had this additional child all these years later, I don't know how she portrayed that, or, oh, she changed after she had this other kid. Something along those lines had to come up, because then she was never allowed access to that child. So there is no relationship between them. Now, the report I want to talk about in specific in this video is the, actually it's two situations. So I talked in Romulus about the how she was trying to get fraud charges on me for getting the power of attorney signed with my dad. And me and my dad had been talking about this since the beginning of his injury. He was 100% sure he had not signed any power of attorney documents. We talked about it at least 20 times. Charmaine has this documented along the way, because she's been involved for 5 years now, documenting all of the crimes and every step of the way. Now, my mother did have some false power of attorney documentation slipped in with the paperwork to have the work done on their house that workers' comp was paying for in October, the end of October of 2023. My dad was completely unaware he had signed it. I do believe it was his brother and Terry Knorr, the lady who is in care of his, in charge of the care for workers' comp. I do believe those were the two witnesses on her documentation. He was just completely unaware he ever signed it. So when I got mine signed in April, she suddenly pops up with all this documentation. Oh no, I've had power of attorney all along. No, you haven't. No, you haven't. And ironically, I made a police report a couple days before stating I've been carrying the paperwork around. He's just not well enough to sign it. And then I have videos of him, his actual physical and mental state, the days after her paperwork was signed, either that day or several days after, numerous videos. You can tell he's not in a position to sign them. So right then and there, I can prove her paperwork was false from day one. That is the reason I've been banned from my dad, the main reason I've been banned from my dad and the care facility. Those are delusions and crimes that she committed. So then she went into the Romulus Police Department once I got the legit one signed, after she figured out I did that, and she pops up, oh no, I've had them all along, see? Trying to show all these agencies at that point. If you really had them all along, you would have been producing them from the time you had them signed to different places trying to get things in order, which at no time did she ever do. She was at no time trying to get any of his finances in order at the separate bank account he had, or any of the other debts that he had, or anything. And then I did the video where when he was fully with it at the beginning of his injury, he states that, you know, I had my finances, you had yours. That proves she should have never been touching his 401k from the jump. And that was after an attempted murder on his life, and she did not think he was going to survive it 10 days after she caused it, and then she cashed out his 401k without anybody knowing. And I figured this out after I got my legit power of attorney document signed. So now, after Romulus basically did their little investigation, they just told her to take it to probate court, because they're not involved in the crimes long term. They haven't seen, she doesn't have as many of those people in her back pocket, if any. She could just be repeating delusions to them and they believe her and enter the false information. But Brownstown long term are heavily involved. So, you know, they directed her to go to probate court, but then because the two banks were in Brownstown and my power of attorney was legit, I took them to his personal bank account, began to get him an attorney, a probate court attorney, to get guardianship of him because of everything she was doing, and she's been poisoning the food long term as well, and that's why he keeps coming near death. I took money from his bank account to hire him an attorney, and the attorney's name was John O. Knappman. He happened to live in the same subdivision as my parents, the Woodland Heights subdivision in Brownstown. And I got, it was a total of 4 money orders, I believe. 3 from his account and 1 came from mine. And I paid the guy, and he never filed the case. And I actually had to file a complaint with the Attorney Grievance Commission to properly document it. At no time was I planning on going to the Brownstown Police with this. They had already believed that I'd committed all these other crimes, that I'm involved in all this. She'd already told them all this false bullshit. So I knew they weren't going to try to help me. And so I took care of it my own way, which it worked in the long run. It just wasn't in a timely manner to where I got my dad adequate counsel to, you know, state to the court what has all actually been going on, the truth of everything, not the bullshit she fed everybody, because the whole court date played out fraudulently as well. So I'll get to that in its own video. So ironically, yes, the attorney stole the money. And then I ended up filing my own court papers on that case and just let the Attorney Grievance Commission handle it. And then eventually, my mother made her way to the Brownstown Police, and then separately there was a joint bank account that they had that I took some money from to get the truck fixed that my daughter drives. I didn't even take enough to cover what it was fixed. It's still not fixed, and the place still has the deposit. So she went to the Brownstown Police with all this, since, you know, they're all in on this long term and have no problem operating on her delusions and helping her commit the crimes. They believed everything she said without investigation. They did not look into any of it. All they did was verify that some money was withdrawn. They didn't look into who the money orders were made out to, the fact that I'd hired him an attorney with his own money, or the fact that I'm the one who fixes vehicles and maintains everything within a household, and I've been on my own for over 20 years. I've been running my own household, 100% self-employed, generating 100% of my own income. I run everything. Even as an extremely injured individual, permanently disabled, permanently injured, I have kept everything going all along. I have not worked for somebody else in a very long time, solidly since 2012. I just temporarily went to work at the restaurant that happened to cause my injury, and it took me out for life. So I have, all of these things running. Here I was trying to keep that vehicle running because of the narcissistic games. That money was not going to be coming out of my pocket. I already own 2 vehicles that I'm responsible for. I'm certainly not going to play more narcissistic games and put any of my funds into a vehicle I don't own. So now, due to that bank, my mother was able to manipulate that bank manager. I believe his name was Chester. And he's believing whatever delusions he was told. The Brownstown police believed everything without investigation. Didn't even look into the fact that the attorney stole the money. Didn't even look to see who those money orders were printed out to, or even question me at all. Didn't even Google me or about the house that I own, what I own, where I'm at in life, how long I've lived here, how long I've owned this house, what's been going on in my life, anything about me. No questions asked whatsoever. They 100% operated on her delusions with no investigation whatsoever, promising her fraud charges on me as long as she gets custody in probate court. And then she manipulated all the people involved in the probate court situation to operate fraudulently and gain custody of my dad. And she's a danger to him. So I will get to that in its own video, but she did all that on those promises from the Brownstown Police Department. I believe it was Detective M. Ramsey who is responsible for that. And so now this investigation was brewing in the background, and I wasn't even made aware at that moment. It was actually the notary that I had hired after we were questioned by Romulus separately, and we both had the same answer. None of us did anything illegal, and that's how I busted everything open with what had gone on there. That notary is the one who told me that Brownstown had also contacted her and stated that there's an open investigation and that's what they were doing. She's the one who notified me of it. And no time did Brownstown ever have any intention of notifying me on it, because they'll have a larger agenda to make sure I'm locked up in prison. And I will get to that in the future, because that is the plot twist, and I will get to that in the end. It's just all of this information has to come out first. So these people all belong behind bars, every single one of them. So, now, the other bank where they viewed me as power of attorney, the one that her name was not on, and I was using the funds properly. I had been running all over, bringing him dinner every night for over a year. It was like a year and a half at this point, which I had paid tens of thousands of dollars, most of out of my own pocket. And then with the damage to my home, which was actually caused by my mother's actions and the crimes of the city of Flat Rock that I live in Ford Motor Company, there was all this damage to my home, and here I was waiting on quite a bit of money from my homeowner's insurance, which took about 8 months to get the first large check, after the tenant had thrown those checks away, and I couldn't even report the crimes to the Flat Rock Police Department because Sergeant Matthew Welchinski threatened to come back and falsely arrest me and refused to take the reports. And he would not take the reports on the criminal negligence either. So all of these police officers are involved. All of this led to that. Yes, I went to the bank to take out some money. Yes, I was still sending my daughter to bring him food even after I was banned fraudulently because I did not commit fraud. Not only that, I didn't sneak anything in. I didn't do anything illegal. These people were all on delusion. She gained the entire trust of the entire spinal care facility, and they'll operate on her delusions and crimes and help her as well. Every single person in there when I warned them in advance. So, yes, I took some of the money from the bank account. I maintained getting him the food. I can only handle so much. I'm permanently injured. I have all these things running. Basically, overall, her crimes had wiped me out numerous times throughout my life. I had to restart my life numerous times and had to file for Chapter 13 bankruptcy. And then here I was waiting on the homeowner's insurance for this large sum of money that took 8 months to get. It does not take 8 months. And I'm still waiting. Currently, it's been 20 months. I'm still waiting on the remaining portion of the funds and the finishing check at the very end. So there's another issue there as well. This all ties back to her crimes, though. Every single thing ties in. So now, the people at the bank, they did state, I don't know if she showed them a statement or they said, yeah, she took this or that or whatever. Still, Brownstown did not investigate, just promised false fraud charges on me. And then still never investigated. And at some point I had called and I said, I'm aware that there's an investigation going on me or whatever, but how do you investigate when you haven't ever spoken to me? You don't know anything about me. And he wasn't hearing anything I was saying. He talked right over me and basically said, where's the money? What'd you do with the money? What'd you do with the money? Not listening to anything that I'm saying, that my mother's been committing decades of crimes. You need to investigate her. This is what she did here, there. She did all of this. I can prove it. And not listening to anything I'm saying. And I'm telling him, yeah, I paid the attorney with it, and the attorney never filed the case. Oh, so the attorney stole your money? Yeah, that's what it's looking like, because I can't locate him either. So they didn't even investigate to even figure out that degree. The majority of the funds that were pulled from that account were for that attorney who never filed the case. Didn't even investigate to figure out that that's who took it. Didn't even investigate who I am as a person. Nothing. Even if you Google my name, my address pops up, it's going to show, it's going to disprove everything that's been told about me. So he didn't even try to do that. And then I'm trying to tell him over the phone, and he's basically telling me he's promising my mother fraud convictions on me. Fraudulently, with no investigation, as long as she gets custody in probate court. Well, we already know she can manipulate every single person in agency, so of course she was going to get custody, because it did play out that way. So I'll get to that in its own video. So in the meantime, this investigation is going on in the background. This guy has no intention of looking into me, nothing, no investigation, operating on delusions and promises of whatever she's promising him or whatever she's paid him or whatever she's promising after I'm locked up. Crimes right there. He needs to be arrested and investigated himself because he's played a role long term. Now, on 7/24 of 2024. So this is about 6 weeks after I got my first insurance check from the homeowner's insurance. So this was the second check I'm on at that point. And here I am having to work at a rapid rate. Stuff is on a time schedule. I have numerous things running. I only have so much functionality. On top of this, I have numerous companies working for me, numerous people working for me, doing different things within the home. There was over $100,000 in damage. There was numerous sets of things going on. Certain people were doing certain things, is what it was. So on the date of 7/24/24, mind you, in the past, my dad had already stated to me, and I'm pretty sure there's witnesses to this, that can verify that he said I could have whatever tools I wanted. He was never going to use them again. And he stated this on numerous occasions when he was fully with it. And my mother doesn't know how to use any of them, so there would be no need for her to have them. So I did talk to my dad over the phone that day. At this point, my daughter was running off doing what I had to kick her out at that point. She was storming around my house. You could tell she was here to gather information on me and deliver it to my mother. You could tell by her behavior. So, and I know she's going to call 911. Flat Rock's going to show up and falsely arrest me because that's what the guy said he's waiting to do. He's still sitting there waiting to do it. So I eventually kicked her out, got my team of people back, got the lady back who worked for me for a year and a half, a couple years ago, and then several other companies that were helping me take care of the damage in different areas of the home. We were all working at one time. We were on a time limit. So my daughter's gone at this point. And this is what's going on. And then my daughter stopped showing up at my dad's room to bring him food every night the way I was sending her to do. And then when I got my dad on the phone, he was able to answer the phone. He did talk to me. It was about, I want to say it was noon or 12:30 p.m. On 7/24/24. And he was asking about my daughter and where she'd been. I said, I don't know. I had to kick her out. She's screaming delusions in my face. I could tell. I didn't tell him everything because I knew my mother was standing there. But I know she's paying her or promising her stuff in the future to get information on me and relay it back to them, relay it back to her. So, I said, I don't know where she's been, but I had to throw her out because, she's demanding things from me and refusing to help with any of the work. I have all these projects going on. I'm permanently disabled myself. I have to get all this stuff in order, and she's causing problems, screaming delusions at me and feeling entitled to do whatever she wants. So I said, I don't know where she is, haven't seen her. And then I said to him, you said we could have your tools and whatnot. We had already come numerous times and gotten several sets of tools. It was not an issue. So he did say we could have the tools all those different times in the past before he had all this brain damage. And that day he said, yeah, you can go get the tools. My mom helped him use the phone. He's blind. He can't see. He needs help using the phone. And at that time frame, she's always there at the facility at the time frame. And the facility has a log. So you can even check the log and see that she was signed in at that time. And she was there helping him use the phone. So she talks to, she helps, she doesn't say anything, but I know she's there with them. And he's, he talks to me for a minute. He says, we can come get the tools. Mind you, we're very busy, on a tight schedule. I've got one of the companies is coming from an hour away. All these people are being paid by the hour by me. I don't have money to waste. I don't have time to waste. I don't have that type of functionality. So now I would not take the time to have the conversation with my dad, double check and make sure it's okay. We can go get these tools. And then for us to not be able to grab them, we wouldn't be doing that. We have a lot of work going on. I'm a businesswoman. I have very serious stuff going at all times. I always have. So regardless of what anybody's heard from anybody's mouth, those are delusions you've heard about me. I have business running all the time in one direction or another, if not more than one set of business, usually. So I would never be wasting the time to come get tools that we wouldn't be gaining access to and taking back with us. That would never be the case. We don't have time for that. Why would I be paying all these people by the hour to come play some delusional game out front? A false trespassing incident is what my mother staged, basically. So after my dad gets off the phone with me, my mother hangs up the phone, helps him hang up the phone. She goes in the hallway at 1:05. It must have been about 1 p.m. So shortly after this, she goes out into the hallway. She calls her little buddy, Detective M. Ramsey, from Brownstown Police Department, and says that I'm going to be trespassing at her address in advance. So now my team of people that came from over an hour away got there first, and then the second carload of people got to us. We got there after. There was several sets of people in 2 vehicles. The police were already sitting out front because this guy was told by Detective M. Ramsey that I would be coming there. So he told his little minion cop to go sit out front, that there was going to be a trespassing incident. And no time was this a trespassing incident. Not only that, but my vehicle was in the street. And so then I noticed right away the garage door thing was like different. We couldn't get in. The whole thing was changed. My mother had somebody change it all. But regardless, we were told we could have the tools. We were told we could come get them. We're not even trying to get into the house. We just need the tools from the garage. I know exactly what I need. I know exactly where it's at. And so, then the cop tries to drive up. I believe is Officer Max tries to act like I'm trespassing. I'm not supposed to be there, acting like not even paying attention to anything that I'm saying, because I actually have the police video to this. So the police video backs up everything that I'm talking about and verifies that this idiot isn't listening to anything that I'm saying, that this is a staged incident. I don't have time for games. We're in the middle of business. We don't have time to play. Why would all of us come here in 2 vehicles when everybody's being paid by the hour and they all work for me? That makes no sense. So this guy isn't listening to anything I'm saying, that this isn't a trespassing incident. You have a deranged lady calling in the background telling you these things. And then there's no proof of her phone call, which means she reached out directly to Detective Ramsey on his personal line, and he put his little minion cop out front like it states in the report. And then this cop writes a false report and says that I'm trespassing. I was trespassed away. No, I was in the fucking street. So not only that, again, no time to waste. So I have this conversation with this guy. The cop that's sitting out front, I'm telling him what's been going on. He's not listening to anything I'm saying. I'm telling him this isn't a trespassing incident. As soon as I leave there, we go directly to Home Depot to buy the same exact tools that we were supposed to pick up at my parents' house for $600 and some. So we could have skipped the entire situation. Again, none of us have time to waste. Why wouldn't we have just gone to Home Depot right off the rip and gotten the damn tools? Doesn't add up. So all of these police officers are directly responsible, writing another false police incident report. My mother's over here farming the delusional reports over the course of time, using different cops, different departments, different agencies over the course of decades to keep this all going. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the video of this incident. I'll be right back. Okay, so Yeah, so this is just ridiculous, you know what I mean? The fact that it's been allowed to continue on this long, there's so many individuals involved, doesn't make any sense whatsoever. None of it does. And it's just allowed to continue on decade after decade. Their full intention, bottom line, is to have me locked up and farm these false allegations on me, who I am as a person, how I operate, what I'm out here doing in life. No, these people are the ones committing the crimes. They don't give a shit that they're over here harassing somebody for decades, have destroyed this person's life, because now, due to all this long-term harassment and involvement of all these agencies and police departments, that's part of the reason I'm permanently disabled. I will get to that in its own video. Because of my mother's 2013 escapade that she went on, eventually led me to work at the place who caused our injuries, mine and my son's injuries, and me to work there at 30 weeks pregnant. Otherwise, I would have never been there in the first place. So all of this is tied together because it's been going on so long. I will go over the entire 2013 escapade. It's a lot, so that'll be its own video. Now, let me see here. Okay, so this is going to be the video on that. And you can tell he's not listening to anything I'm saying. And then still writes it as a trespass. And this video is also cut, and there was cuts made to it, and it was modified to suit what they want it to show. See, my car's in the street. My team of people working for me, their vehicle's in the driveway.
So, this is what I'm gathering. I guess your mom called and says that she doesn't want you here.
Right.
Okay? So, this will take me 2 minutes. Just let me explain this. I'm jumping into this like...
Both of them are here on the phone.
Okay, I'm jumping into this case very late in it, okay?
Right.
I was talking to the detective. Yeah. Apparently your dad doesn't have the mental capacity to give you guys permission to be here.
Well, I have it in writing that his tools belong to me now. And you guys have a copy of it.
Okay. Has the detective already been made aware of this?
Nobody in Brownstown has contacted me because Brownstown police along the way have helped my mother commit some of the crimes against me.
Okay, well, we don't typically aid in criminal activity, so...
Well, but you didn't know it was criminal because people take her reports and this has been going on for decades.
I've never met anybody here.
Okay, I believe it.
I don't know anybody at this address.
I believe it.
So...
But this has been going on for decades, and there are officers within Brownstown who have helped her commit the crimes. There's plenty of proof. There's plenty of witnesses. It's never been properly investigated.
Okay.
So that's part of the problem. That's why I haven't been contacted properly.
Is there a current open case?
I was told by the notary that I hired that there was.
Okay.
And I did hear from Romulus, because I guess there was a Romulus investigation and a Brownstown. I heard from Romulus only, not never Brownstown. But when I told whoever I talked with Romulus, when I said I made police reports in advance for years, even before his injury, they must have went back and started finding them. And it proves everything I'm saying. Because I'm calling what's happening in advance. So that makes me think that's why nobody from Brownstown has called me, because they've helped them participate in crimes. Not even knowing that that's what they're doing. They believe she has custody of my 19-year-old daughter, or did at one point. That's not real. It caused a whole bunch of problems. She now acts a fool. That's why we have this problem. She could have came over here and found the tools.
Yeah.
She's not graduated from high school. She missed the last 2 years of school. And it's because the Brownstown police and the crimes. And then it got involved with the Monroe County Court of Court, because they really believed she had custody of her. And she didn't. They kept saying civil matter, because they thought she had custody of her. It was a kidnapping, and everybody refused to return my daughter. So, it turned into a Monroe County front of the court thing between me and her dad didn't even know why he's there fighting me. So, he ended up getting awarded custody because my mother then inserted herself in the situation, told Monroe County front of acting a fool, screaming my mom's delusions at me. I threw her out a few days ago. She took off in my dad's truck. And eventually my daughter was coming here to get the tools. I have $100,000 in damage at my house in Flat Rock. The reason for the damage is also my mother's crimes. That girl should have never been in my house, and that's my mother's crimes. Why she hit me there in the first place. So now I'm dealing with the $100,000 in damage. Finally, took a year to get the money from the insurance, and that's what we're working on, and that's why we're here to get the tools. So I don't know why they even, she was there with him, and then she said we could go, when he said we could come here and get the tools.
Your mom?
Yeah, she's sitting there right next to him. She stirs up the problem and then turns around to make it look like I'm crazy. And she tells people I've had a mental disorder and a drug problem for years. None of that's real. There's a psychologist been involved for 5 years. We know who the problem is.
Again, I don't know this case hardly at all. I'm just going off of what my detective's telling me right now, okay?
Well, we need to search a little
so,
deeper.
this is what I'm going to tell you. I guess the homeowners don't want you here, and you're...
Oh, she stole the home from
Hold on, you're being trespassed from here, okay? So if you come back...
I don't come here at all.
Just hear me out for like 2 seconds. If you come back, you could get issued a citation for trespassing, okay? It is a misdemeanor. So you have to go to court for it,
I've got all
that.
types of charges this woman's got put on me.
I have to let you know. So
why would they tell me it's okay to come here when she's sitting right there taking the phone call?
I can't speak for what somebody else said.
Well, I mean,
I don't know.
on the phone and she knew we were coming over here. That's why you're here.
With all due respect, I don't know who's on the other end of that line.
I mean, I'm
okay.
a special treat talk to them. They're in the same room together. She heard everything. She knew.
I don't doubt it, but I can't prove that that's who they are. You know what I'm saying?
I can prove everything I'm saying.
All right.
Okay, well listen. My mom stole the house out from under my dad. He's no longer a
I'm not saying you're wrong in any of this. I'm just letting you know.
So is anybody investigating how she got ownership of the house signed out from under him? Because I know exactly how she did it. It's his house.
I don't know.
She stole it from him and moved it into trust for her.
Are they married?
Yeah, but she had...
So then
she
what's
slipped
hers
a
is his
document
and
in.
what's his is
Well,
hers.
technically, but she slipped in a document while he was signing for work to be done on the home. He didn't know he signed it. She slipped in a quick claim deed, signed over his half of the house to herself, had an attorney move it into trust for herself, and he never authorized any of that stuff. He was fully with it at the time that it happened. He didn't do it. He was talking to me about it all along, and that's nothing he would ever do. So she actually stole the house as well. He's making a lot of money. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, but I mean, there's a lot of stuff with the mortgage and the deed that I don't know.
Well,
I mean, I know that
right.
women can sell the house and take all the money.
They can't do it now because of the...
Well, men can't do it. I know that, but women
because
can.
workers' comp paid for the house to be remodeled for him to come home. So
Yeah.
there's a lien on it now. They're not allowed to remodel it. They're not allowed to sell it.
Okay.
And she probably doesn't know that. There's a lot.
I'm sure
I'm
it's not
talking
in the 5 minutes I've talked to you. I'm sure it's more than just
It's a lot.
one reason that I'm over here.
Yeah.
But again, I have to warn you that you're not to come back here. Okay.
So she set that up so that you would tell me that.
I'm just saying. I gotta
I'm
tell
not
you.
coming back here. I own a big, beautiful home bigger than this. I'm good. I have nothing to do with my parents. Bought my first house 22 years ago. Nothing to do with it. I'm never over here. She did that intentionally knowing we were coming to get the tools so she could set that up. And that's part of the crimes I'm talking about. So if you go and research between Romulus and Brownstown alone, all the police reports I've left, you'll figure out who the problem is and who you need to be arresting and who you need to be looking into.
All right.
So, I mean, that's bullshit. Because now now my contractors need money to be paid for the time that we've been sitting here playing games, and they have to go buy the tools. So now we got a bigger problem.
Can I get a good phone number for you?
734-771-3068.
Is it Jamie Lee Camardo?
Yep.
All right. Okay. Well, sorry.
She tried to do something to get my dad his house back. She had no right to.
I will see, but I don't think there's a whole lot that we
401k
can
as well.
do.
And she tried to kill him first, and then stole his 401k.
Okay. Have you made a case about that?
Yep.
All right.
I made cases all over the place, even before his injury. Nobody's listening. So this can end one way. Either he's going to die, or I'm going to die, because I have a very serious condition that she's at the root of making sure I never got treatment for. I've had to spend $165,000 out of pocket at private center. I'm not allowed to even walk into a hospital for treatment because she worked for Goldmine for 45 years. So when I became extremely injured, my son here was injured with me. We lost 5 years of our lives to carbon monoxide. We were left with no treatment in the regular medical system. She was still an employee at the time. She's retired now. We had to seek treatment at a private facility and spend all that money to get us to where we are today. And she's behind all of treatment, no assessment, bleeding from the head, unconscious at Walmart for 15 minutes, unresponsive, dead. Brought in, and they kicked me right out onto the street. And they were just her crimes. So I suggest you guys take a little peek, because I'm still in this.
All right. Well, I hope things get better for you.
You see that? Everything I said right there. These people continue on with the bullshit. Where's the investigation? Promising fraud charges on me? I can prove everything. I did all my homework. I've got all the evidence. I have it all in my possession. I've got backups given to other people in case they make me disappear. Bullshit. Crimes of the Brownstown Police Department. Detective M. Ramsey at the root. Why is he still allowed to operate? Why is he not in prison yet? He's in her back fucking pocket or in her fucking pants. I'll be back with another one. Bye.